Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Prince Agency Insurance. I am Melinda, and we are going to talk about long-term care today. We did a double header today. Earlier, we did a Medicare 101. If you missed that, please check that out on the replay on our website, which is princeagencyllc.com. And if you go under the About tab, there's an Education tab in there with all of our previous events that you can catch. Today, we have a special guest with us. Her name is Jean Osman, and as a broker with regard to all sorts of products, from health insurance and Medicare to long-term care and different products like that, I rely on experts that specialize in each of those particular product categories when I have a case that I need to get somebody the best help we can. So Jean is one of those experts that I rely on, and we have brought her in today to educate us a little bit more in depth on some long-term care choices and differences between types of them and things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to move into, we're going to do it sort of like a question and answer where I'm going to ask some questions, pose them to Jean. She's going to respond with some answers to let us know options that people have, things that would work better or worse for people with, maybe different kinds of conditions or needs, and help us understand some of those products better, okay? Again, like I said, I am Melinda, the owner of Prince Agency. We do have a team here of 3 agents, and about 6 of us total on our team, but 3 of us are agents. Myself, as the principal, we've got Katie Widener and Anna Dobbins, who is our newest team member. You'll probably, if you're clients of us already for Medicare or health insurance, you'll be hearing more from Anna as we go through this next enrollment season. And then we have Jeffrey Mueller, who happens to be my husband. He is our director of operations and usually the circus leader around here, we often call him. So he's in control of calendars and lots of communication and things like that to help us all out. All right, we're going to dive right in and start with our first question, right? So laying the foundation of what, why, and where, okay? So Jean, if you wouldn't mind kicking it off for us with what does long-term care insurance really cover and what is excluded? I'll let you take it from there.
That is a fantastic question to start with. So long-term care insurance really is going to cover what's called custodial care. It's everything that Medicare and your health insurance doesn't cover. So when you think about when you get up in the morning, the first 15 minutes of your day, if you get out of bed and you walk to the bathroom, that's getting from a bed to a chair, that's transferring. That's one of your activities of daily living. And that's something that your health insurance and Medicare is not going to cover if you can't do that independently. Going to the bathroom independently, that's something that your health insurance and Medicare is not going to cover if you can't do that independently. Getting dressed on your own, if you can't lift your arms over your head to put a sweater on by yourself or bend over to put your socks on, that's something that Medicare and your health insurance is not going to cover. If you can't do that yourself, they're not going to cover someone to come in and help you with those sorts of things. Getting in and out of the shower, to take a shower or to bathe. Again, things that health insurance and Medicare just absolutely do not cover. Eating, getting food from the plate to your mouth. These are things that health insurance and Medicare do not cover. Just your basic first 15 minutes of getting up and getting around. If you can just picture that, those are things that you might assume health insurance and Medicare would cover, but they don't. So then what is excluded from long-term care insurance? Those are the things that Medicare and health insurance do cover. So it's the gap in between there. That is what long-term care insurance really does cover. It's making sure that you can get by during those days in your life when you can't fully take care of yourself anymore, but you want to maintain your dignity and you want to maintain choice of how you're cared for at that time in your life. That's why long-term care insurance is so important.
All right, awesome. Next question. Does it make sense to buy long-term care insurance even if it doesn't cover all of the costs of care? Can partial coverage still serve as a meaningful financial safeguard and family protection strategy? Less is better than nothing, right? So let us know what you think about that one, Jean. I know you've shared some very particular stories with me in the past.
Absolutely, it can. When I first started my long-term care career about 20 plus years ago, I started in Chicago, and I started off by selling long-term care insurance to just everyday citizens like you and your neighbor. And I thought that buying long-term care insurance should cover every last dime of your long-term care expense. And that's how I work with people to protect themselves. And then I ran into a woman who wanted to buy long-term care insurance, but just a very small policy. And I couldn't understand why she was so insistent that she needed just a small policy. She really couldn't afford more than that, and I didn't want to push her to buy more than that, but I didn't know if buying a small policy really was going to make a difference for her. And I really struggled as to whether or not this was a good idea. Finally, she saw me struggling with it, and she said, Jean, stop. As a family, we've already discussed this, and when the time comes for me to need care, my daughter-in-law is going to be my primary caregiver. We already know that. But if I can buy this long-term care policy and it pays for 10 or 15 hours a week for someone professional to come in and care for me, what will those 10 or 15 hours of freedom mean to my daughter-in-law when that time comes? That moment changed how I looked at long-term care insurance. It's a person by person by person choice of what is important in your life. And it's an individual situation as to the type of coverage you need and the difference it's going to make in your life. Will $2,000 a month or $6,000 a month be a windfall at that time in your life when you have a bill coming in for maybe $6,000 or $7,000 for long-term care costs? Absolutely, it will be a windfall. Even if you only have $3,000 coming in to cover a $5,000 bill, $3,000 covering most of that bill is going to be a huge windfall. If that's what you think is going to make the difference for your family, then that's what you should do. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. It is a meaningful safeguard and a meaningful family protection strategy, whatever you feel is the best protection for your family.
When is the best time to buy long-term care insurance? What ages are most cost effective? I know there's lots of professionals out there in the world that you might see in, radio programs and things like that have some very defined ideas about when you should purchase. I know my opinion is a little bit more specialized depending on the family and the person. So Jean, please give us your expert opinion on that one.
The point about long-term care insurance is that you buy long-term care insurance with your health. You can have all the money in the world, and if you don't have good health, you're not going to be able to buy long-term care insurance. There is pretty strict health underwriting for the product. So you've got to buy it when you're young enough to go through what they call health underwriting, which is basically when someone looks at your health and says, yes, you're still healthy enough to buy this, you're not going to need support in the next 2 weeks. You're not going to need support. We're not going to have to turn around and start paying out money for this product that we can see already down the road. You've got to be healthy enough to get the coverage. So whatever age you are is probably the time to buy long-term care insurance. The younger you are, the more cost effective it's going to be. But even if you're in your mid to late 60s, early 70s, there are still products out there. Even in your mid to late 70s, there are products out there that can make a big difference. And as long as you're still healthy, it's a good idea to look for long-term care insurance. You can still turn $1 into $3 or $4 for long-term care insurance. And that can make a big difference to your family when the time comes.
What are the most common triggers for benefits, and how does the elimination period or waiting period affect claims?
So what I've seen over my career as far as the most common triggers for benefits, there are 6 activities of daily living, and you have to lose 2 out of the 6 to qualify for benefits. And then once you qualify for benefits, you have to go through a waiting period. The other way to qualify for benefits is with a cognitive claim. In other words, you either lose 2 out of the 6 activities of daily living, or you need constant supervision because mentally, cognitively, you've become a danger to yourself. You're leaving the stove on, you're wandering the house, you're getting lost. So the cognitive is something by itself. But what I see as the most common triggers of the 6 activities of daily living, those are eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, meaning cleaning yourself, continence, controlling your bladder and bowels, and transferring, or getting from a bed to a chair independently without any help. The first 2 that we usually see go are bathing, needing someone to hold your elbow as you get in and out of the shower so you don't fall and break a hip, and dressing, needing someone to help you put on your socks in the morning or help you with your sweater when you lift your arms over your head, to coordinate that as you're putting on clothing, or do the little buttons or the snaps on your clothing due to problems with arthritis or Parkinson's. Those are the first 2 that I usually see go. But it could be anything, just depending on the circumstances. And how does the elimination period work? The way that works is that there's usually what they call this waiting period, this elimination period, which is kind of like a deductible period, where you have to go through, usually 90 days is kind of standard, where you're paying your own way for those first 90 days. Sometimes there are policies where it's immediately available. Benefits are immediately available if you're receiving home care. And then there's only a 90-day wait if you're going into a facility like assisted living or a nursing home. So you just want to start a claim as quickly as possible so that when you need the least amount of care and it's the least expensive, you're going through that elimination period. You don't want to wait to start a claim to you need 24-hour-a-day care, and it's very expensive to go through those 90 days. You want to start your claim when you need a few hours of care a day, and it's least expensive period of time. So if your family thinks it's time for you to need care, you want to and you have a long-term care policy, you want to let that carrier know immediately that it's time to start that elimination period clock going.
Last one on this particular topic. How do I determine how much coverage I need and for how long? Crystal ball. Let's pull it out.
No one has a crystal ball. No one knows for sure how much coverage you need and for how long. The best thing to do, really, you know yourself and you know your family history. If you have cognitive issues that run in your family, that's a good indicator that you may need a longer plan than the next person. If your family does not have cognitive issues or does not have long Parkinson's, or there hasn't been ALS in your family, there have only been people who are just getting older and they need care for a short period of time, that may be an indicator that you may need just a 2, maybe a 3-year plan to cover the risk of long-term care. You know yourself and you kind of know instinctively what your family history has been. That's the best indicator you can go on, but there is no absolute for sure. So work with your financial professional and work with them to know what you're protecting also. If you have a lot of assets to protect, that's helpful to know, and you may want a more catastrophic coverage that way.
Wonderful. All right, next section, policy types and options. So understanding the tools that we might have at our disposal to choose from. The first question with regard to policy types or options is, what's the difference between traditional long-term care insurance policies and hybrid or linked benefit options? Right? We've got many new things to choose from these days, so break those down for us.
Traditional long-term care policies, they do not have life insurance attached to them. So they are typically use it or lose it policies, and the premiums on traditional long-term care can go up. And they are less expensive. They are the most leverage for your money. So you are risking a use it or lose it with traditional long-term care, and your premiums very well may go up over time, but you're going to certainly start off with a lower premium than the hybrid or linked benefit options. The hybrid or linked benefit options are going to have a life or annuity at the core of them. So they are not use it or lose it. If you don't need long-term care, then you are going to end up having a tax-free death benefit or the value of an annuity pass on to your heirs. The premiums on the hybrid products are fixed. And they're going to be typically more expensive because there will be something paid out on those no matter what. Either a death benefit or an annuity will pass on. So there is some asset that will pass on with those policies, and therefore they are more expensive. But they are very popular again because you don't risk premium increases and you have an asset no matter what happens.
How have long-term care products improved over the years, right? We've kind of talked about, we've got original type of long-term care and then some of these more hybrid kind of things, but how have long-term care products improved over the years, meaning that the options, the newer options that we have available to us now? Highlighting new policy structures, greater flexibility, and consumer-friendly features. How far have we come in our options?
Just as I mentioned, we now have products where you don't have to risk premium rate increases. The hybrid policies, although they are more expensive, they allow you to do everything from a single payment all the way up to a pay until you're 95 years old or pay until you go on claim. So, and until you start using the policy, until you need care. So you could be paying for a period of years, and then you stop paying when you need care. So they're very flexible, and from the point of being consumer friendly, we have come a great distance. The silver tsunami of baby boomers who have demanded that products come this far so that there are options in the marketplace for really everyone. Everyone out there who's listening, there is some type of a product out there for you to help you meet the need when there is long-term care in your future, or even if there's not long-term care in your future, there's something to protect just in case, and there will be an asset to pass on if you don't need long-term care.
Are premiums guaranteed, or will they increase over time? What should we expect with those different types of policies?
Premiums on the hybrid or linked benefit options are guaranteed not to increase. If you buy a traditional policy where they don't have life insurance as part of them, then you're buying a policy that is, again, very much less expensive in the beginning. You should expect premiums to increase over time. Maybe not the increases that we're seeing with your neighbor's Genworth policy right now, or their MetLife policy right now, where they bought it 20 years ago and now they're experiencing a 40, 50 to 60% rate increase. What you should know about those policies is that if your neighbor went out, and even though they're experiencing a 40% rate increase right now, if they went out into the marketplace and tried to replace that policy today, they pay 300% of more than what they're paying with the 40% rate increase. The policy that they have is platinum. I guarantee it. You can't replace that policy even with a 40% rate increase, even with a 60% rate increase. Even if they double the price on their Genworth policy, it would not be as expensive as it would be to go out and replace that policy in today's market. Policies that were purchased more than 5 or 10 years ago are irreplaceable. They were just priced very low, and even with rate increases, they are gold, and people should hang on to them.
Wonderful. Okay, so section 4 of our question and answer, we're up to strategic decisions, making a personalized plan, right? First question there we've got is, can my family members be paid caregivers under the long-term care policy? Are household caregivers covered, right? Maybe I want my niece or my daughter or something to help care for me. Can I pay them to do that out of this long-term care policy?
There are certain policies that pay out what we call cash indemnity benefits, which just means that you're not actually sending in receipts to the carrier to get repaid for money you've already spent. So you're just receiving a check each month from the carrier. So that means that if your benefit is $5,000, you're just receiving a check for $5,000 from the insurance company, and you spend that money as you see fit. And if you want your daughter or your niece or your grandson to be your caregiver, you can compensate them from that plan. Absolutely. If you have a cash, what we call an indemnity policy, you can hire whoever you want to do whatever you want when you have that policy. That money is at your discretion to spend as you see fit once you qualify for those benefits to be paid out. So those cash indemnity policies are very valuable, and they're becoming more and more popular. I'd say probably right now about 50% of all of the long-term care policies out there today, the linked benefit policies, what we sometimes call asset-based, are cash indemnity policies where you're not sending in receipts to the carrier to get repaid for money you've already spent. You're just receiving a check from the carrier and spending that money as you see fit for your care.
Question 13, we're up to what health conditions disqualify people from coverage? If I want to get underwritten and now I see the need for long-term care insurance, how does underwriting impact eligibility and pricing?
Long-term care is different from life insurance underwriting. With life insurance underwriting, you're looking at what they call mortality risk, or the risk of someone dying sooner than the next person. With long-term care, you're looking at what they call morbidity risk, or the risk of someone needing care, needing assistance sooner than the next person. So again, it's something like a combination of a heavy build in combination with heart issues and or diabetes or arthritis or osteoporosis with a history of fractures. It's just they're looking for combinations of health issues that will slow you down faster than the next person. So it's not a matter of what might cause you to die faster. It's a question of what might slow you down faster and cause you to need care faster than the next person. So what's interesting is that the traditional long-term care carriers in particular, if you've had a heart attack 6 months ago, they're happy to insure you because the likelihood of you passing away may be higher, but that doesn't bother them. But if you have diabetes in combination with a heavier build, that's going to cause them concern because that may lead to you having numbness in your feet and needing someone to help you get around. So that's a concern for them. That would be more of a concern than the fact that you had a heart attack 7 months ago. It's a very different picture than when you go through life insurance underwriting.
Okay, question 14. What are the other ways to pay for long-term care? Medicaid, self-funding, annuities, or home equity, right? Describe what the differences are and maybe some of the impacts compared to having the choice of long-term care insurance to pay for such things.
One thing I would want to say about Medicaid is not an entitlement. It is a loan. That is really important. Medicaid is a loan. And if anyone's been paying attention to the news, they know Medicaid is getting slashed left and right. I don't know of anyone on Medicaid who is receiving home care. It's just not, they don't pay for home care. And I also don't know anyone on Medicaid who is in a private nursing home room. Medicaid doesn't pay for private nursing home rooms. You want to avoid Medicaid. Medicaid makes you a ward of the state. The state is now in charge of your care once you go on Medicaid. That is not the choice that most people want for that chapter of their lives. You want to maintain choice and dignity during that chapter of your life. Long-term care insurance helps get you there. Home equity can be part of that. Long-term care doublers on annuities, putting money aside for self-funding. But there's nothing quite like long-term care insurance to double, triple, quadruple your money plus over time and get the money out tax-free. There's nothing quite like it out there. I don't know of any other product in the marketplace today where the government allows you to deduct your premiums from your taxes and down the road receive your benefits tax-free. I just don't know where that exists anywhere else in the US economy. I also don't know where the government allows you to take an annuity that has gains in it that normally you'd end up paying taxes on those gains if you took money out of that annuity, move that annuity with the gains into a long-term care focused annuity, double, triple, or quadruple the value of that annuity for long-term care purposes, turn $100,000 into $300,000 or $400,000 for long-term care. And if you do use that money, that $300,000 or $400,000 for long-term care, the entire pool of money comes out tax-free, including the gain that was originally moved in there. No taxes. No taxes, not on the tripling or quadrupling, and not on the gain that you moved into the second annuity to begin with. No taxes. That's called the Pension Protection Act. The government wants people to buy long-term care insurance because it is going broke paying for people to stay in nursing homes. The government is going to do everything they can to encourage you to buy long-term care insurance. And Lord bless them for doing that. Helping you maintain dignity and choice and not be dependent on the government.
All right, section 5 of our question and answer, final insights and expert advice. So let's bring it all together here. Jean, based on your experience, when someone is deciding between partial coverage via a rider or a hybrid and full traditional long-term care insurance, what kind of financial profile or mindset should guide those decisions?
It's really all about a conversation, with someone like Melinda who can guide you. Partial coverage, I think if you can partially self-insure with Social Security and or a pension or money coming in from an annuity or money coming in from rental income, we all know that we're going to have income coming in when we're 80, 85 years old. Whatever that income is, we will have income coming in at that time in our lives. We don't need to rely 100% on long-term care insurance to pay our long-term care bill. We can self-insure part of it. All we have to worry about is the gap between the cost of care and what we can comfortably self-insure. Just fill that gap, and Melinda can help you do that.
All right, so next question is for someone looking to balance price and protection. How do you help them avoid over-insuring or under-insuring, right? Because ideally, none of us wants to over-insure and be insurance poor. And none of us wants to under-insure and not have the care or protection that we would need or want. Could we make that choice now?
Again, that is really looking holistically at your finances and finding that sweet spot for you personally. These policies come with things called inflation protection, 3% compound inflation, 5% simple inflation. Depending on your age, there's growth, or there doesn't have to be growth. You can buy a benefit that's going to remain the same, and you know exactly what your benefit's going to be when you need care, and you can budget for that. That holistic conversation where you're taking into account your entire financial picture, and then looking at what the cost of care in the area you plan to be in during that time in your life, what that's going to look like, and figure out what that gap is, where you're going to fall short, and how to make up that gap. Melinda and her team can help you do that.
Amazing. Lots of great information. And Jean, I really appreciate your time today and expertise to give us more in-depth details on some of these options. Obviously, we have scratched the surface and we have hopefully highlighted the need for a very individual review of what choices might be best suited to fit your needs, your health concerns, your budget, your desire for independence and choice later. If you're interested in having one of those conversations, we would love a little bit more information about you to answer some of those questions for you. So we have a really informative, a little bit more in-depth long-term care ebook that we would love to share with you for being an attendee today. So if you're able to pull out your phones, go to that camera on your phone and scan that QR code. It will lead you to a very short little survey with just a few basic questions about if you were to need care, where would you get the money from today, that sort of thing, so we can sort of identify what assets would be most likely depleted and determine whether it makes more sense to leave the assets where they are or consider multiplying those assets with some type of a long-term care product. and evaluate between health and concerns and issues, and whether an underwritten plan or a more asset-based plan might be better suited to fit your needs. Those are all sort of pieces to that puzzle. But if you can use the QR code, take that very quick little survey, we will send you that ebook that can give you some more in-depth information. And then if you are interested in a more personalized session with myself to strategize about which types of things might be best suited to meet your needs, your budget, the concerns that your family members have, especially if it's family members that may be caring for you when that time comes. They may want to put some input into it, okay? And the last slide is just our contact information. Of course, if you feel free to contact us at any time, of course. Enrollment season is fast approaching for both health insurance and Medicare. If you're clients already and you're already on the calendar, wonderful. If your clients already are not on the calendar and you think you need to be, because we should be checking, please give us a call to make sure that we've got a scheduled time for you to do that and do that kind of review. That's all we've got for today. Thank you again for coming out for our Third Thursday event, and look for this to be posted both to our Facebook page, which is just Prince Agency on Facebook, and then it will, within about a month, it's posted to our website, again under princeagencyllc.com, under the About tab, and the Third Thursday Community Conversation Educational Events. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next month. Take care.